Namaste, world raisers. Roger and Sabina here, and today we are covering a very special video, a documentary on Swami Vivekananda's Swadesh, Chetana. And we do not know what those words mean, so if somebody wants to let us know. We love Swami Vivekananda, his teachings, his message, what he did for India and the world, getting Sanatan Dharma out there. And a big shout out to our volunteer Shubham for requesting this video. He requested 3 very politely, very kindly, very respectfully, and he's helping us out so much. So of course we're gonna cover
all of them
this
for
video.
You.
And also we want to shout out the channel Ramakrishna Mat and Ramakrishna Mission, Belur Mat. I believe we've covered this channel once or twice before, but I can't remember. But either way, go check them out. For the next 50 years, let all other vain gods disappear from our minds. There is only God that is awake, our own race. Everywhere his hands, everywhere his feet, everywhere his ears. Ooh, cool. Swami Vivekananda's Swadesh.
Chetana. We
Chetana.
googled it. We have no idea.
Nothing showed up, so maybe it means like his mission.
The challenge.
The challenge.
Imagine India in the year 1000 CE. India was the most prosperous country and accounted for nearly 1/3 of the GDP of the whole world.
Oh, wow.
For the previous 2,500 years, India had seen an unbroken journey of economic growth, assimilation of new races, and the development of a vast cultural heritage.
Cool.
For nearly 1,000 years during the Vedic period, 1500 to 600 BC, India developed the vast and marvelously rich body of Vedic literature.
Cool.
A literary and religious legacy unparalleled in any other civilization. Between 600 to 200 BC, India saw a period of exceptional creative ferment, leading to the birth of 2 of the world's great religions and the creation of the early empires.
Ashoka.
In the next 800 years, right up to 650 CE, India experienced the first golden age of its classical period. The crucial catalyst was the unprecedented economic prosperity that India enjoyed. The early medieval period saw great maturation on all fronts.
So well done, this video.
In the late medieval period, the creative phase of Indian civilization was coming to an end.
Oh dear.
And it began to experience deep internal fissures that were weakening it. India was becoming fragmented from great stable empires into numerous short-lived warring kingdoms, which led to a loss of political cohesion.
Oh dear.
There was a decline in global trade. This led to economic stagnation. With the increasing divisions of caste and rigidity of social structures, India began to experience a loss of social cohesion. And to top it all, religious life of Indians was also vitiated with the proliferation of priestcraft, superstition, and degenerate cults.
Right.
In short, India was weakened internally. An internally weakened India now faced tremendous external challenges. India experienced wave after wave of Islamic attacks.
Oh dear.
This included the 17 consecutive attacks by Mahmud of Ghazni, the attacks of Muhammad Ghori in 1175, and the Mongol invasion of India around 1221.
Tragic.
Each subsequent invasion led to a large-scale plunder. In the words of the Persian historian Abdullah Wasaf, the Mohammedan army brought the country to utter ruin and destroyed the lives of the inhabitants, plundered the cities, and captured their offspring. Many temples were deserted and the idols were broken and trodden underfoot, the largest of which was one called Somnath.
Do you know Somnath?
No.
Me neither.
This was followed by an unbroken subjugation of the Indian population by the new rulers, starting from the Sultanate of Delhi to the era of Mughal rule. In this period, the overall inequities in Indian society increased tremendously, and we as a people became further weakened. Then followed the British. The British conquest led to a huge draining of wealth from India. But it also led to the destruction of our education system and its replacement with a new system designed to make clerks of Indians.
What does that mean?
Clerks. Well, make them like
Lord Macaulay's minutes of
Secretaries.
1835 clearly states, "We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern. A class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect."
oh, so they're turning the
This
Indians
control of the
into English.
education system led to a colonization of the mind, the most devastating form of
Sorry.
control and subjugation that India had ever been subjected to in its history. Indians began to believe what the British said themselves, that a single shelf of a good European library is worth the whole native
What?
literature of India and Arabia.
What? Oh my God.
How did India respond? In the 19th century, India saw the birth of several reform movements in different parts of the country. These were aimed at removing visible social evils such as sati, caste rigidity, polygamy, and child marriages.
I only know that.
But they stopped short of addressing the deeper psychological, cultural, and civilizational challenges that India was facing. India was, in fact, facing a much deeper existential threat. Its very self-esteem, its very individuality, its very faith in its history, its culture, its civilization was shaken. In the words of Swami Sharadananda, a brother disciple of Swami Vivekananda, Indians came to believe that the long cherished traditions and beliefs that they had held were wrong. And their traditions were primitive and semi-civilized because Western science had proved them to be so. At this point in time, what India needed was not social reform alone, but the fundamental reawakening of a civilization. And indeed, a deeper response was emerging.
Oh, wow. What a video.
The inner response.
Oh, beautiful.
Away from the noise and newspapers and public talks, in the temple of Dakshineshwar outside Calcutta, an extraordinary life was unfolding silently. Sri Ramakrishna, now acknowledged as one of the greatest spiritual giants of all time, was realizing God through the paths followed by each of the great religious traditions that had developed through thousands of years in India. These include the paths followed by the Shakta traditions, the Vaishnava traditions, the Vedantic traditions, and many more. He also followed the paths of Islam and Christianity. No wonder Romain Rolland, the Nobel Prize winning author, calls Sri Ramakrishna the fulfillment of the spiritual aspirations of 300 millions of Hindus for the last 2000 years.
Wow.
Awesome.
To this Ramakrishna, silently living the life, came young Narendra, a precocious young man with a brilliant intellect and well read in Western philosophy. But this young man was no dry intellectual. He was also gripped with a spirit of true inquiry, a yearning for seeing the truth for himself. And it was this deep inner urge that led him to Sri Ramakrishna. The encounter began with the now famous question which Narendra asked Sri Ramakrishna: "Have you seen God?" And the answer, equally famous: "I can see Him, only more clearly than I see you." Thus began a journey through the vast realms of spirituality, a journey which the extraordinary Narendra made with intensity and rapid progress, including the highest realization of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, considered the acme of spiritual life in many great traditions. Young Narendra was being prepared for an even greater life. His master placed upon him the responsibility of spreading his message to the world. One day when they were alone, Sri Ramakrishna looked at Narendra and went into Samadhi. Narendra felt the penetration of a subtle force and lost outer consciousness.
Awesome.
When he regained his normal mood, the master said to Naren, "Today I have given you my all, and by this power you will do immense good in the world, and not until it is accomplished will you return." Thus was created the spiritual power that can be called Ramakrishna Vivekananda, India's ancient soul awakened in a modern mind.
Wow.
Awesome.
From 1888 onwards, he was impelled by some inner force to go beyond the boundaries of a small monastery at Baranagar, to seek and learn about his vast motherland through first-hand experience. What a unique education! He was today an unknown pilgrim, and the next day the guest of princes, conversing on equal terms with prime ministers and maharajas. In one place, he dived deep into ancient books of study, and in another, he was studying a great monument in intricate detail. Through his travels, Swami Vivekananda encountered again and again the basic contradiction at the heart of India. On the one side, he saw great spiritual and cultural wealth, and on the other side, he saw poverty and a deeply diminished race. In a talk with a brother disciple, he said,
"Hari Bhai, I'm still unable to understand anything of your so-called religion, but my heart has expanded very much, and I've learned to feel. Believe me, I feel intensely indeed."
On Christmas Eve of 1892, he reached the southernmost tip of India at Kanyakumari. Swimming across the shark-infested waters, he
Sharks.
sat on the last stone of India in the middle of the ocean and entered into a deep meditation on the past, the present, and the future of his country. And through this meditation, a vision emerged in his vast and compassionate heart. A vision for India, a vision for his own mission, and perhaps a new vision for humanity itself. It was after this meditation that Narendra, who now took on the name Swami Vivekananda, resolved to go to the West to participate in the Parliament of Religions, a world event at that time. His extraordinary debut at the Parliament of Religions and his famous beginning are well known. The success at the Parliament led to Swami Vivekananda's transformation from an unknown Indian to a world figure who interacted with some of the most celebrated individuals of the time.
Sweet.
It also made many Westerners revise their opinion about India. For 3 years, Swami Vivekananda was seeding the powerful ideas of Vedanta and the Upanishads in the Western world. Through his encounter with the West, he also discovered and understood the power of organization in bringing change. At the same time, Swami Vivekananda was also setting his Indian work into motion. This he did through a series of powerful letters sent to his Indian followers, friends, and brother disciples in the midst of the intense activity in America.
Wow, I didn't know he was doing that.
Through
Cool.
these letters, he was shaping the Indian work and preparing the ground for his return to India.
Just set the world on fire and those who will join. So we are my brave lads. Awakening India, beautiful.
Swami Vivekananda returned to India in 1897, where he was accorded a hero's welcome.
Awesome.
Thousands turned up to see this new type of hero,
Wow.
one who conquered not with weapons, but with lofty ideas and ideals. Swami Vivekananda gave a series of stirring lectures across the length and breadth of the country,
Different
awakening the
places.
nation.
Oh, way.
The spirit of his talks can be understood when we listen to the first words of his lecture at Ramnad. In the voice of Swami Ranganathananda,
the longest night seems to be passing away. The sorest trouble seems to be coming to an end at last. The seeming corpse appears to be awaking India, this motherland of ours, from her deep, long sleep. None can resist her anymore. Never is she going to sleep anymore. No outward powers can hold her back anymore. For the infinite giant, he is rising to her feet.
Wow.
through his words, Swami Vivekananda awakened his fellow countrymen from their collective national slumber.
Wow.
First of all, he awakened his fellow Indians at an individual level. He especially called out to the youth.
Oh, sweet.
Teach yourselves, teach everyone his real nature. Call upon the sleeping soul and see how it awakes. Have that faith, each one of you, that eternal power is lodged in every soul, and you will revive the whole of India. Be bold and fear not. Arise, awake, for your country needs this tremendous sacrifice.
Wow.
Rouse yourselves, therefore, for life is short. A far greater work is the sacrifice of yourselves for the benefit of your race, for the welfare of humanity.
Second, he awakened Indians at a collective level.
So long as the millions live in hunger and ignorance, I hold every man a traitor who, having been educated at their expense, pays not the least heed to them.
Wow.
Feel, therefore, my would-be reformers, my would-be patriots. Do you feel that millions are starving today and millions have been starving for ages? Great things have been done in the past in this land, and there is both time and room for greater things to be done yet. Therefore, let us go forward and do yet greater things.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Third, he awakened Indians at the level of their role in the world.
Each race has a peculiar mission to fulfill in the life of the world.
Wow.
Each race has to make its own result to fulfill its own mission. India's gift to the world is the light spiritual.
Boom.
Gifts of political knowledge can be made with the blast of trumpets and the march of cohorts. Gifts of secular knowledge and social knowledge can be made with fire and sword. But spiritual knowledge can only be given in silence, like the dew that falls unseen and unheard, yet bringing into bloom masses of roses. This has been the gift of India to the world, again and again. The eyes of the whole world are now turned towards this land of India for spiritual food, and India has to provide it for all the races. There cannot be friendship without equality. If you want to be equal with the Englishman or the American, you have to teach as well as to learn. And you have plenty yet to teach to the world for centuries to come. This has to be done.
Wow.
And finally, he asks Indians to rise to the call of the nation.
If there are holes in this national ship, the society of ours, we are its children. Let us go and stop the holes. Let us gladly do it with our heart's blood. And if we cannot, then let us die. We will make a plug of our brains and put them into the ship, but condemn it never.
We're gonna pause here for part 1. I know it's flying by, but
Whoa,
let's split this into
amazing.
2 parts.
Wow, wow, wow. Wow. Absolutely incredible. So far, so excellent.
Perfect.
What an incredible video. Very well made. A lot of time went into this. So thank you so much to the creators of this beautiful, wonderful, sorely needed video,
Yes.
right? So Swami Vivekananda was a giant, a powerhouse, right? Went out there, and it seems like his work is still being done. He said for centuries to come, right? So that means it's up to the younger generation still now to rise up, to take on the mantle, to learn about the Indian spirituality, and that's the gift to the world, right? And the world has received a ton of benefits. It's like, you know, a lot of times we get some comments about, you know, white people teaching Sanatan Dharma, and some people want to question that, why aren't Indians teaching it more? Well, you got to see it as we got to kind of cut the barriers of race in that sense and say that, okay, well, if a white person has learned Sanatan Dharma, then he technically is a Dharmi as well, eventually, especially if he's practicing the teachings, right? And then that was the gift of India to the world. So it's not surprising that the world, some of it would be spiritual and embrace the teachings and then take them on, seek liberation, salvation, moksha, samadhi, and all of these things through seeking the truth. And then they, luckily there was some gurus and some masters that have sought to spread that in the world, and that was Swami Vivekananda's mission, and he succeeded, right? So a few things I didn't know about how he was when he was in America and doing all of his stuff overseas, he was still in contact with his disciples or followers and friends. And so a lot of people, so he was writing a ton of letters, preparing the ground, and then he came back and then had all these speeches. Absolutely incredible. Fantastic. And then the very beginning of the video, so looking at the historic periods, just not that long ago in reality, and all the tragedy that India suffered, but prior to that, prosperous, booming, incredible. So it seems like, perhaps after the Mahabharata and then those events, because we needed to see that in reality, that India did have a time of prosperity after the Mahabharata, it seems. But we didn't really come across that too much yet, because in recent times we just see, what happened, all of the invasions, and then of course the British took over and then plundered all the wealth and then instituted these horrible systems of just kind of denying all of India's truth. Like the one quote really struck me, and kind of it's upsetting because it just shows the ignorance that's still prevalent in the world, this pride and this ego, thinking that, we know better and we're superior. Like the one guy said that any shelf in Britain, in any common home, one shelf would be more wisdom and knowledge than all of India's sacred literature. So that's ridiculous. And those who know, if you're watching this video with us, then you probably know and understand, the importance and the spiritual significance and truth of the ancient Vedic scriptures. So then you can see that when somebody's making a claim like that, it's just ignorance, right? It's like people don't know, and puffed up with pride, thinking that, okay, well, we got guns and military and the war machine, and then we can go conquer these lands and barbarians, and that's all ignorance, right? So the world is just covered in it. So that's the gift of Swami Vivekananda. And India, Sanatana Dharma in general, is to spread truth, light, spiritual light into the world, right? And it needs to continue, and that's why we're so fascinated in Sanatana Dharma right now, because there's so much to learn, and it is truth, right? So yeah, absolutely loving it. And I know Sabina's loving it because she was crying.
I was crying once again. Well, at the beginning it was because it was just so painful.
Oh yeah, it's tragic.
It's just what humanity is capable of, what ignorance is capable of, is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, so the message in Swami Vivekananda, was on it, and he knew it through his own spiritual insights. He definitely had some experiences, right? Even invoked, by Ramakrishna, right? So being in his presence, giving him these experiences and helping him on his journey, and then taking that. So a fire was like kindled within him, and it was like an undying flame. So he was unperturbed, and then he came from the point of view of what Sanatana Dharma, teaches immaculately, is that the world is one family, right? So we have to enlighten the world. Once you understand, then you take that on as a mission, and that's really all it is. It's like, so individual, we need to wake up ourselves, right? And then we slowly share with others, right? So if you're doing that, then you are part of the mission. You're part of what Swami Vivekananda intended, right? For the world to help wake up, right? So take advantage of this opportunity. We have the teachings, we have enlightened beings, we have masters, we have access to the truth. Yeah, the ancient Vedic literature survived countless catastrophes, right? So horrible. So we need to just get into this state of like acceptance. Okay, whatever happened, happened. And then we need to, kind of let it go in the sense, but not forget, be like, okay, because it's very clear that there's a lot of ignorance in the world, and we can hold it in mind that, okay, yeah, we're not out of it, and then go from there and then do our part in sharing truth. And if people don't understand it, it doesn't mean that we're wrong. Like if we're like one person and we're talking to 100,000 and they all think that, we're wrong and we don't know what we're talking about, that's fine, right? Because some people will, and those are the hearts that open up first, and then there's a progression, right? So we're all waking up. So anyways, absolutely, loving this video. If you're liking it as much as we are and you can't wait for part number 2, hit that like button. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already. This is fantastic. Head on over. If you can't even wait for us to continue, we're going to leave the link in the description and go watch the rest of this beautiful, beautiful documentary.
Let's keep flying. We want to watch number 2 right now.
Yeah, so let us know what you think down in the comments, and let us know what you're doing. What are you doing to light that fire within you? To wake up, to be part of the dream and the mission of Swami Vivekananda and all other, enlightened spiritual beings. They're all part of the same mission, relieving suffering, waking up our spiritual natures, getting on the path, realizing truth. That is how we raise ourselves
and raise the world. Thank you so much, everyone. We love you.
Peace.